Greetings and welcome to the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. I'm your host, John Sullivan. You may know me as Buffalo66, or you may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em, or from some of the other podcasts I've been involved in. I'd also like to welcome everybody that's come here from Fear the Beard Media. You can check out our episodes on various platforms, thanks to them, such as iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, etc., etc. They have a whole host of content for you to explore, so check them out at fearthebeardmedia.com. So, welcome back to the podcast. I didn't have an episode last week. However, my betting fortunes have surged pretty well. I had a 3-0 week in CFL last week, thanks to two wagers on the Red Blacks, and they came through against Hamilton with a backup quarterback. And then on Saturday, this past Saturday, I had a glorious backdoor cover on the Alouettes as they scored a touchdown in the last minute. The score was 22-2, and they challenged defensive pass interference on a 3rd and long, was awarded a 1st and goal situation, and scored in the last minute to give me a cover. So the point I'm making here is, if you're in the betting game long enough, the run good and the bad beats are going to even out. You're going to remember some fortunate wins as well as the terrible losses. And I've had my share of both this year. It's been pretty even, I have to say. So, CFL is currently sitting at 20-13-1 on the season. And we have 3 weeks left in the regular season, including this weekend, and then 3 weeks of playoffs. So going into this weekend, which is week 18, I have 2 plays locked and loaded, and I will tell you about them now. My first play is tonight. It's the Toronto Argonauts plus 16.5 points at Calgary. This is the best team in the league versus the worst at the moment. They've lost 9 of 10, I believe. Ricky Ray returns a quarterback for the Argonauts. However, for the Stampeders, they are sitting a bunch of their starters, and some that play may not play a whole lot. So I think if this is a replacement level game on both sides of the ball, I think 16.5 points is just way too many. So I like the Argonauts to cover here, assuming Ricky Ray can stay healthy for 60 minutes. And there's 2 games on Saturday. I've also already played Edmonton Eskimos at BC Lions under 57.5. For those of you that listen to my CFL podcast, I've always said that when the totals get to 57, 58 points, I always look for a reason to play the under. And this game is indoors, but it's probably not too impactful on the playoff scenarios. As a matter of fact, I believe that Edmonton, who is sitting in the transfer spot right now, which means they would play in the Eastern Conference playoffs, would prefer to do that. They would have an easier path to the Grey Cup as opposed to a team that is going to have to go through Calgary. So I have a feeling that this game might be a little closer, a little tighter to the vest, a little conservative, being that people don't want to make any big risky plays with playoffs coming up. And Rich Leone is the place kicker for British Columbia. He's been a little sketchy lately. A couple of missed field goals here and there that can make a difference in the total. So those are my 2 CFL plays for Week 18, and we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to have a CFL podcast this week, but I will have another episode for Week 19, so stay tuned for that. But let's move on to my NFL wagering, and last episode that was available, which was 2 weeks ago, I was struggling in NFL at 7-10 overall. I had a great week 5 wins, 0 losses, and then on week 6, I went 2-1 for my first push of the year. I had a tough beat on Monday Night Football, and the game went to overtime. It looked like it was going to be a solid under, but it didn't. And then I had 2 bets on the Ravens. One lost at 3.5, one pushed at +4, and they took a late loss on that big Odell Beckham touchdown. However, overall in NFL, I'm at 14-12-1, and I'm slightly in the black. There's attractive plays pretty much every weekend. And the only wager I currently have set for week 7 is the Eagles +3 at home versus Minnesota. Vikings are due for a loss. This is a good down spot for them, kind of a trap game. I'm surprised they're a road favorite. Carson Wentz is a rookie, but after 6 games, 5 games, he should be indoctrinated pretty well. I do expect this to be a low-scoring game, and the lower scoring the game is, the more valuable the points are you're getting. So I like the Eagles +3 here. I like Cleveland plus the points. I think that game's going to be a lot closer than people think. There's a couple other games I'm looking at and some totals I'm looking at, but with the Cleveland game and everything else, I'm really just waiting on the lines to get where I want them to be. So I'll have some plays upcoming this weekend for those of you that want to know what my NFL action is going to be. So that was my official wagering for last week. I didn't play an NFL DFS, and for those of you that have been following the podcast, I haven't done very well with the NFL at all this year. From a fantasy perspective, I don't feel like I'm spending enough time on it, and it shows in the results. So, that's kind of an evaluation I'm going to have to make going forward. I did play CFL cash game, and I put my lineup on my Twitter page. It was a lot of chalk, but it went really well. Almost all of my players performed well, and the one spot that I was question marked on, my last flex spot between Fantuz and Deron Carter, well, that one worked out better. I picked the better of the 2 choices there. So it was a very competitive lineup. Speaking of DFS, NBA preseason and NHL are live now in DFS. And DraftKings has eliminated the late swap for the hoops. Big surprise for a lot of people. Didn't see that coming. That change, I think, was obviously done to help less experienced players who will lose money at a slower rate and keep those DraftKings user numbers elevated. So those of us who follow the DFS industry know that the majority of the entry fees come from a handful of users. A lot of the big players are being staked or they're syndicates. And they 10% produce 2/3, at least 2/3, if not more, of all the entry fees that are being spent on these sites. So to keep their active user numbers elevated and to make it look like they have more people playing, they need to make sure that the inexperienced players lose their money at a slower rate. So they need to dumb down the games to make it more chance-filled and less skill-filled. And they're obviously committed to multi-entry salary cap, which I don't agree with at all. I could spend a whole episode just talking about that. But you're going to see things like this happening. But it still stumps me how they don't offer more innovative games. They can keep their big jackpot games and offer other things. They would get my business. They wouldn't lose their other business. There's a lot of unanswered questions there. I always wish they would go public so their conference calls and stuff and their internals would become public, but we'll never know, I guess. Anyway, this change, dropping the late swap, one thing I'd like to say about that is it makes it a step closer to matching the FanDuel product. They don't have exactly the same product, but it's a lot closer now. And I think that that's going to help facilitate an inevitable merger between these two sites. I've said in the past that these sites would either announce a merger or merge approximately June of 2017. I think after this NBA season is over, but before the next football season starts, they just have to. I think they've plateaued in their user base. I don't see them expanding into new countries. They have to share costs in order to survive. It's just sheer numbers. So we'll see what happens. However, if you want to give DFS a try and maybe just dip your toe in the pool and not play with the big boys, I suggest you should give a look to rosters.com, which sponsors this podcast. Use code CRAZY at the sign up. You'll get a $20 bonus on a $10 deposit, and that'll give you $30 total to play with right away, and that'll help you build your bankroll perhaps, or maybe you'll get a big score. Anyway, if you want to give DFS a try, go to rosters.com, use sign up code CRAZY, and we appreciate them help to sponsor this podcast. Well, if you paid attention to my Twitter, and of course in my last episode, you know about my NHL betting experiment, and it's in full swing. I post pretty much every day, and the season has started off down due to a bunch of high-scoring games. The scoring's cooled off this week, but that left me kind of digging out of a hole. You know, the first week or so, the over-unders were, the odds on the over-unders were marked pretty close on the 5, and teams averaged for the first week almost 6 goals a game. So it was, if you bet all overs the first week, you did awesome. But that didn't work out too well for me. I have 2 experiments, one with totals based on the number 5, and I'm currently 4 wins, 16 losses, 10 pushes, around minus 10.5 units. So 33% of all the games I wagered on pushed, which is a lot higher than I expected. I expected it would be maybe 20%. But that means that scoring is pretty high so far. And I also am doing an experiment where the total is 5.5, and I'm doing better at that scenario. 13 and 17, obviously you can't have a push on a 5.5 total. And that has me down around minus 3.5 units. So the totals are starting to come out more based on the 5.5 than the 5. So at the beginning I was getting a lot of 5 wagers, and now I'm getting a lot of 5.5 wagers. That means more unders at 5.5 are coming alive, which are lower paying odds, but they fall within the parameters of my wager experiment, having expected value on under 5.5 at certain odds. So, you know, I realize that I'm down, and most betting systems are losers. People say, oh, I have a betting system, and that's not what this is about at all. This is a wagering experiment. I'm collecting both data and experience as a way to help me place better wagers in the future. Not only just for hockey, but for me to extrapolate this experience to other sports, to other areas of sports betting. And I think this exercise is already helping me as we approach college basketball, and this will help me identify the same kind of total, the same kind of value in college basketball totals, which will be starting in another month or so. And you know, it also applies to the football that I wager on. So we'll see where it goes. But I have, you know, it's got potential to finish in a positive with a positive result over the course of the year. So we'll see how that plays out. Well, I'm going to wrap things up this week. I call this the steroid episode because I was injected with steroids this week in my shoulder, and it's been in a lot of pain doing my physical therapy and whatnot. But I'm going to cut it short this week. So if you have any questions, comments, or any topics you'd like me to discuss, get at me on my Twitter page, which is @BuffaloHold'em, and you'll find all my plays posted there and my monthly betting records as well. And you can just comment at me if you like. If you've missed an episode of this podcast, or you want to listen to my archives or any of the other podcasts that I've done, you can visit my YouTube channel, which is also named Buffalo Hold'em, and I have archives of all my previous episodes there. So, sorry about the short episode. Hopefully I'll be more energetic next week. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the games this weekend, and until next time, bet like no one's watching. Take care.